We'll do a review in Likutei Sichos in Chelik Ches. This is the second Sicha for the Parshas Bamidbar. This is a Rashi Sicha, a very detailed, and the Rebbe takes apart the various different wording in Rashi. We're discussing over here that when they moved the Mishkan from place to place, so they had to pack it up. And the ones who did the packing was Aaron and his son. And who carried it? The Levim, the Bnei Kohos. They were the ones that carried the Kivala Es HaKodesh. The Levim were not supposed to see the actual Kalim. The Kalim needed to be covered first by the Kohanim, and then once it was fully covered, then the Levim, the Bnei Kohos, can come and move it and carry it. And the pasuk says when they're ready to move and they take apart the Mishkan, they should cover it up, the Kohanim, so that when the Levim come to carry, they're not going to see, it's going to be all covered. How the covering worked, so we'll see. Sometimes it's different, but there was basically two coverings. One was a fitted covering for that particular vessel that they covered, and then they had like a garment over it. The pasuk talks, and we'll talk a lot about the Sikha. There's a lot of details here, but the Rebbe will clarify what Rashi means here. It seems to be a very, very difficult Rashi, and we'll go step by step. Bamidbar Beis Aleph. So in Sir Sedra, this is in the end of the Sedra. At the end of Parshas Bamidbar, the very last pasuk, and the pasuk talks about how everything is covered. So the pasuk says, "Is Rashi maitik from pasuk?" So Rashi quotes from the verse, "V'lo yavoyu." So the Bnei Kohos that carry the kalim of the Mishkan to the next stop, to the next journey. So it says the Kohos carry the kalim of the Mishkan. So v'lo yavoyu, they should not come inside of the Mishkan before they're fully covered. They should not come liros to see Kivala Es HaKodesh when the Kodesh is being covered up, as we'll see. Kivala Es HaKodesh, when the Kodesh, the various kalim that were covered, so they can only see it after it was fully covered, but they cannot come to see as the Kodesh was being swallowed in as it's being covered. So Rashi teaches, what does it mean, Kivala Es HaKodesh? It's an unusual language when the Kodesh is swallowed in. So Rashi says in the Mefarish, Likutei Sichos, to its cover. Every one of the kalim had a cover, and you needed to cover it, and then it also had a garment on top of that. But that cover, that nartik shaloi, Rashi says, you shall not, the Levim should not come inside when the kalim are put into their covers. Kivala Es HaKodesh. Only after they finish putting it into the nartik, into the cover, that is when they can come in and carry it. There's another version that they shouldn't be there when at the time that the keli is being put into its seat, into its holder. Only after the process of covering of the kelim by the kohen, then the Levim, the Bnei Kohos, can come in. That's what the pasuk is saying. Danach bringt der Rayis of them. Then Rashi goes and brings proofs that they were covered. as the Klei HaKodesh hat man eingegeben in Antarctic. He brings proof that the Klei HaKodesh were placed in this cover, in the Nartik, in the seat for the Kelim. Kidlakama base, that's the next part of the Rashi that the Rebbe will address. Right now we're addressing this very first part of Rashi, in which Rashi says that they should not see as they're being covered. Unis Messiah, and then Rashi concludes, Ubalua Shaloi Zeu Kisuya. Being swallowed in means that's its cover. So what does it mean, cover? What does it mean, balas hakodesh? What does it mean, balad? That meaning is swallowed. The cover. The cover is the swallowed. Is when you no longer see it because it's swallowed in. We'll see all the Rebbe details in the Rashi. So the Rebbe asks two questions now in the very onset of this Rashi. Rashi seems to explain what does it mean when the Kodesh is being swallowed in, meaning when the Kodesh is being covered. But we're not talking about they shouldn't see. We're trying to explain what shouldn't they see. So in Rashi's heading, Rashi brings down from the Pasuk not only Kivala Es HaKodesh. Rashi says also V'loi lo yavoyu liros Kivala Es HaKodesh. They shouldn't come and see. But the lo yavoyu liros talks about the Levi. We're explaining what should they not come to see Kivala Es HaKodesh when the Kodesh is being covered. So why does Rashi also bring down the words of lo yavoyu liros? Let's look inside. The first question, Aleph. Rashi is dolich eira mefadesh blois de werter Kivala Es HaKodesh. Rashi seemingly is only explaining here the words when the Kodesh is being swallowed, what it means. That's what Rashi's come to tell us. Favos is maitik euch de werter. Why is it also quoting from the verse the words lo yavoyu liros? They shouldn't come to see. That's not what Rashi is addressing over here. And the Rebbe says, ubifrat, especially, these two are talking about two separate things. Ados is an inyan bifnei atzmai, that not to come to see is its own subject. That's talking about the Levim. Dos retzich wegen the Levim. Who is not to come to see? The Levim, the Bnei Kohos, they cannot come to the Beis HaMikdash to see when they're coming to carry before it's covered. So v'lo yavoyu liros, they shouldn't come to see. And then when you say Kivala Es HaKodesh, they shouldn't see what? When the Kodesh is being swallowed, is being covered. That's talking about the Kalim. So there are two separate. So why are we bringing down the Lavoy Liris? We're trying to explain what does it mean, Kivala Es HaKodesh, that it means when the Kalim are covered, not to bring down that the Levim should not see. How does that have to do with that? That's the first question. And number two, the Rebbe is asking in the lengthy wording in the Rashi. So, der Tam verwos der Achnosos Klei Hamigdosh in Zeyer Nartik wird angerufen Kivala Es HaKodesh. What is the reason why when you put the holy vessels, the Kalim of the Migdosh, into their cover, Nartik, their seat, their cover, wird angerufen Kivala Es HaKodesh. Why do we call it when the Kodesh is being swallowed in? When it's being covered, we called it Kivala. Is the Pashut. It's obvious. The far was durch them. When you covered Verdi Kli HaKodesh, eingeschlungen Mechusa. It's because through the cover, these holy vessels are swallowed in and they're covered. Sukidek, they're being covered. That's why it's called they're swallowed, because they're being covered. Und wie Rashi allein führt uns, Rashi himself concludes in the end of the Rashi, says, Ubalua Shaloi. When you say what is his swallowed in, that's the cover. The cover swallows him in. So that's obviously why it's called Kivala. is nicht verstandig, so it's not understood. So was darf Rashi früher sagen? So why does Rashi first have to say Letoich nartik shaloi? It says into its seat, into its cover. Und dann noch Östdeutschen, and then what it's then to translate it, that this ubalua shaloi, when it's swallowed, what is the swallowed in is covering. As well, l'chayre given genug, it seemingly would have been sufficient. When the Shraik Bekitzer Rashi could have said just briefly, Kivala Es HaKodesh means kishemechasim oiser. When you cover it, that means when you're swallowing in. It's obviously when you cover it, you're swallowing it. Rashi says you put into nartik, and then that is what it means covered. That is the balua. Why does Rashi have to add that it's the nartik shaloi? That seems to be an extra in Rashi. As the Rebbe will explain, everything is exactly fitting. Explain that all these things are teaching us very specific, the language of Rashi, what it's telling us, as we'll see in the end. So basically, the Rebbe presented here two questions. On the first in the Rashi, first the Rebbe asked, why does Rashi quote from the pasuk Lo Yavoyu Liresh? It means that it's telling you something more. And as the Rebbe will explain, that is actually necessitates, from there, Rashi necessitates how to teach Kivala Es HaKodesh. It could possibly mean something else, as we'll see in the Rebbe's answer. And the second question, what is the length in the explanation of the Rashi? And now we'll do Ois base.